This is section 3.2, compound statements and connectives. In this section, we're going to learn about a lot of different ways to combine simple statements, which is a statement that contains one idea with no connecting words. And our connecting words are things like and, or, if then, and if and only if. Okay? Now you're going to see a lot of connections with the set stuff we did back in chapter 2. A lot of the ideas are the same. The notations are even similar. Okay? We're going to go into much more detail with this, but the word and is symbol and logic is this. And it roughly correlates to intersection, which we did in sets, and you can see how similar they are. Or is symbolized with this giant V-looking thing as opposed to that whenever we did sets. It's very similar. Okay? If then is symbolized with a single arrow. If and only if is a double arrow. We're going much more into all of this. And actually these first 3 pages, I believe, are heavy on definitions and things. So I apologize in advance, but we need this information before we can start applying things and working problems. All right, so let's talk about and. If P and Q represent 2 simple statements, then the phrase P and Q can be written P with the upside down V, Q. Now the official name for an and statement is a conjunction, joining. The name for a compound statement containing and. All right? Now we do have to pay attention. There are several different ways in English that we can say and without saying the word and. Of course, if you have P and Q, you can go directly, that one's easy. It would look something like this. It is after 5 p.m. and they are working. Okay? Here I have P and Q again, but I could write it as P but Q. It is after 5 p.m., but they are working. It has the same truth value. It means the same thing. It's just a slightly different way of saying it. P yet Q, also very similar. But it's after 5 p.m., yet they are still working. Same idea being said, and they are equivalent truth values. And we also have nevertheless. P and Q is the same thing as saying P nevertheless Q. It is after 5 p.m., nevertheless, they are working. I hope you can see how all of these are saying the same thing. And as English speakers, we do have to be aware of this because often English doesn't translate into math very well because math is very precise and English is not. So we do have to be careful about that. Okay, so we have our and statement, which is roughly the same idea as intersection, and we've talked about the various different words we use to talk about that idea. We are also going to be dealing with or statements. If P and Q represent 2 simple statements, then the phrase P or Q, which is symbolized like this with a V instead of the U for a union, and the official name for this is disjunction. Okay. Disjunction is the name for a compound statement containing the word or. So disjunction goes with or. Now we did talk in chapter 2 about exclusive or versus inclusive or. And the exclusive or is what we use to say A or B but not both. And then we have the inclusive or, the type that says allows for both. In English, we need to hear A or B or both. The exclusive or we hear best in our mother's voices or whoever was your disciplinarian. If you can have cake or you can have ice cream, but if you get both, you will get in trouble. Okay? But inclusive or allows you to get both. And in math, we always use the inclusive or unless we are told otherwise. So if you see the word or, we are going to assume it is the inclusive or. Okay, so the conjunction and disjunction are very similar to intersection and union. Now, if-then statements. And if-then statements, when you think about logic, you probably think about this type of statement a whole lot. It's, okay, this is true, okay, and what does that mean? That means this must be true. That's kind of statement we're talking about. If P and Q represent two simple statements, then the phrase if P, then Q is symbolized P arrow Q. The if part comes first, the then part comes second, and that is important. Conditional is what we call the name of this kind of statement. A conditional statement is the same thing as an if-then statement. It's just a special name. Okay, now here we have a couple more vocabulary words here. The antecedent is the P part of the conditional. It is also called the sufficient part. Now, the prefix ante, A-N-T-E, means before, so it is the first part. Consequent, you can think of consequences. They come after you do something. The consequent is the Q part, and it is also called the necessary part. Basically, the antecedent goes to the consequent, and also you could say this something is sufficient going to necessary. Basically, what this is saying is if we know this part is true, then that's enough. It is sufficient to say this part. And this part, we'd say, okay, well, this better be true, or this one cannot possibly be true. It is necessary that this part be true in order for that part to be true. That will probably make more sense as we get a bit more practice. Okay, so let's look at some common phrases. And you'll see here, they are all the same symbol. And here we go. If P, then Q. That's exactly the way we phrased it. And I'm doing this with a male and a father. The book, My Math Lab, does not acknowledge that there are any genders between male and female. So as you are working these problems, keep that in mind. I have tried to remove all those problems from the homework, but they change automatically, the numbers in it, and they also change the words in it. So even though I tried to remove one with male, female in it, whenever I looked at it again, it had rewritten one of the problems and put it back in there. So just keep that in mind as far as this book and the My Math Lab part of this class. There's nothing in between. Okay, so if P, then Q. If a person is a father, then that person is a male. Okay? Q, if P. A person is male if that person is a father. So the if part just is written in English second, but it's still the if part goes first, and then the other part is Q. P is sufficient for Q. P is sufficient, so right up here, the sufficient part comes first. So sufficient goes to Q. Being a father is sufficient for being male. So if we know you're a father, then that's enough to tell us that you're a male in this world. Okay? Q is necessary for P. Being a male is necessary for being a father. Now you could be a male but not be a father, but if you're not a male, you're not a father. So this part is necessary for this. Same statement here. And then we have the only if versions. P only if Q. A person is a father only if that person is a male. Okay. And then only if Q, then P. It's just kind of reversing this in English. Only if a person is male is that person a father. All of these are equivalent English ways of saying the same statement. If P, then Q.